Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 17 of Dirtmasters, the review series for the real rally cars of Gran Turismo 6. So in this episode, as you can see, we'll be reviewing the Audi Quattro S1 rally car. This is the slower and less powerful version of the two Quattros on Gran Turismo 6. Still a pretty expensive car, it's 1.45 million credits, and it's still pretty powerful. Just under 600 horsepower fully tuned, and it is of course a legendary car and one of the most successful rally cars of all time in real life. But how does it compare to the other available rally cars on the game? Well, let's go to the track and find out. Now, considering the amount of power that it has and also the era of rallying that it comes from, it's not really surprising that this car has very, very good acceleration. So for acceleration, I am unsurprisingly going to give this Quattro a strong 5. It is very, very quick. Its brakes are also a very good match for its straight line performance. They do a very, very good job of slowing the car down, and surprisingly for a car with such power and performance, it's actually very easy to drive. So for low speed handling, I am actually going to give this car a strong 5. And I wasn't expecting to be honest. The handling is actually a lot better than you'd expect from a reasonably large and very powerful car. So overall, for city tracks, I'm going to give it a 4, because it's very good, but not quite the quickest. So now let's see how it handles a country track. Now, as we've mentioned before, these types of circuits offer a completely different challenge to both driver and car, and they do require more of your high-end performance and high-performance handling. So how does the Quattro perform in this area? Well, I have to say very well. I'm going to give it a strong 5 for twisty country tracks such as this, because it performs brilliantly on them. It's very quick, among the quickest of the cars we've tested, and it performs very well. It's very easy to drive, whilst giving you very consistent and fast and competitive lap times. So for high speed handling, again, I'm going to give this car a strong 5, because it is very, very good. So it's very good on road-based tracks, but what about on the dirt? Well, let's find out. Now, to be honest, I was actually expecting this car to have a bit of trouble on this track, and that's for two main reasons. One is because of purely how fast this car is in a straight line, because many rally cars that have very good acceleration sometimes have a bit of trouble decelerating. You end up smashing into walls because you're going so fast. But this car just doesn't do that. The handling is very controlled, the performance is very easy to use, and to use to the best advantage, really. And another reason why I was a bit worried about this car's performance here was because this car, like the other Quattro, the Pikes Peak version, they do feel bigger than they actually are, for a similar reason to the Suzuki Escudo. The aerodynamic appendages, the wide body kit, the wing, make the car feel bigger than it actually is, and that can sometimes work against you, especially on tighter tracks such as dirt tracks. But in the case of this car, it doesn't hinder your lap. The counterbalance of the car around corners is perfect. There's the perfect amount of grip, not too much, not too little, and it's a surprisingly easy car to drive considering how fast, and from the era it comes from, because 80s rally cars aren't exactly known for being the safest and easiest to drive. But overall, it performs brilliantly on this track, so unsurprisingly, I'm giving it a strong 5 for dirt tracks. And I'm also going to give it a strong 5 for drivability, because it is very easy to get great lap times out of this car, and it is a winning car. It will win many rallies for you. So, a good result for a dirt track. Can it carry that over to a snow track? Well, let's go to Chamonix to find out. Now, I have to admit, as good as this car is on the other track types, it does fall a bit behind its rivals on a snow track, and it's still a fast car, but it is slower than some other cars that do have similar power, or sometimes more. And the reason for that is because of its weight balance. You can really feel the heaviness of the all-wheel drive system come into play more on this track. Now, it's still definitely not a bad car, and it, as I said, it does give you good lap times. So I am going to give it a 4 out of 5 still for snow-based tracks, because it does perform very well. It just doesn't feel fair to give this a rating of 5 when it's really not as good as many other cars. Sometimes cars which are slower but just feel better on this type of track and are easier to get a hang of and just feel happier really on snow tracks. But still a very respectable result overall for this car. So now let's finally go back to the garage for a roundup of its best and perhaps worst points. Overall, I would say the reason why the Quattro is such a good car, and this Quattro in particular, is because it has just enough power and performance to make it truly competitive, but not so much that it's difficult to drive, because it is not difficult to drive. It's far from it. In fact, it's one of the most user-friendly rally cars we've tested so far, and as I said before in the video, that is highly unusual for an older rally car, because they are known for being trickier to drive, but this one just isn't. It's a brilliant car. And that's shown by the fact that as a tabulation of all of its scores put together, it achieves an overall rating of a very respectable 4.7 out of 5, which actually puts it bang on the same overall rating as the Tajima E-Runner and the Suzuki Escudo, both of which have far more power, and both of which you'd expect to get those kind of ratings, whereas this car, although it's very good, I personally wasn't expecting it to be that high in its overall rating. So a very respectable result overall for the Quattro. As far as its best point, well, I kind of already said it really. Its best point is that it has just enough of everything to be very good, but not so much that it's difficult to drive. As far as its worst point would probably just have to be the size and heaviness of the steering and the size of the bodywork, as I mentioned earlier, which can sometimes hamper the way the car feels on certain tracks, but again, it's not that much of an issue most of the time. So as always, I'll put the ratings, specs and lap times of this car in the video description for you to compare it to the other rally cars if you need to. And that's it for this episode, so I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.